Hello and welcome back to KXAN Plus. I am your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Kristen's Classroom segment with our KXAN meteorologist, Kristen Currie. Kristen, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Of course, it's been a busy morning, but weather-wise, we've been very quiet. So
And very cool.
the mornings have been so nice. The afternoon is a little toasty, but the mornings have been just wonderful, and we've been spoiled.
Yes, we have. Every morning and every evening, it feels so breezy outside. You can't complain with that weather.
It's been a little cooler than normal in the morning. We typically see more of this weather come October, so it's nice to get a head start on that. And we haven't had triple digits this week yet, so
Fingers crossed it stays that way.
Girl, it's one of those things. We take the small victories here, and that is a victory for us.
Yes, of course. Well, for Kristen's Classroom today, we're going to be talking about the peak of hurricane season. I know we've been talking a lot about hurricane season not being over, but in fact, we are hitting the peak of it, right?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, today, September 10th, is climatologically speaking, our peak of hurricane season. So let's kind of get into why that is, because when it comes to the Atlantic season as a whole, it starts June 1st, runs all the way through November 30th. And
That's very long.
Yeah, this may kind of look familiar to you, this visual, because I think it really shows what we're in for and why we keep stressing we're not done yet. Most of the activity we see when it comes to the Atlantic basin occurs between mid-August and mid-October. What I'm showing you right now is the number of tropical storms and hurricanes we have on records going back to the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
In the red color, that darker color right underneath it is just hurricanes, and then the burgundy color right at the bottom there, just major hurricanes. But as you can see, Esme, it's not a perfect bell curve here. It's a little bit back heavy with that activity that we normally see and that we have had seen in the Atlantic basin in years past.
And we are in that exact time right now, that time period. And we've had a few storms here throughout our hurricane season. But do you think that we're going to see any stronger ones coming our way soon?
It's certainly possible, and climatology tells us that it is likely that we're going to get some more storms in here. Being the peak of hurricane season, that technically means, we're only halfway done. We still have the back end of the season to go. But September, and not only September 10th, but September as a whole, sticks out as far as tropical system development because of a few different things. One, we have our warmest sea surface temperatures out there in the Atlantic. So if you think about, heating up air and heating up water, air heats up much faster than water does. So our hottest temperatures on land associated with air typically come in August. It's our hottest temperature of the month here in hottest month of the year, I should say, in central Texas in August. September, right after, is when the ocean peaks because of that delay in the warming. So the ocean temperatures typically reach their warmest in September before they start to cool down in the back end of fall. So that's one ingredient you need for hurricane development. Two would be higher humidity. You don't want these big dust plumes coming off the Sahara that we normally see at the early part of the season, because that dry air works to destroy hurricane development. Now, I say that because we don't want hurricanes, right?
No.
But for a healthy storm to form, it needs higher humidity levels, fewer plumes of Saharan dust. Something else to think about would be wind shear. Now, wind shear is basically winds coming out of different directions at different speeds at different levels of the atmosphere. So if you have that, that's working to destroy a hurricane. So with low wind shear, warm temperatures in the ocean, higher humidity, less dust, all those ingredients come together in the month of September typically, and that allows more tropical storms and maybe potentially hurricanes to form. I put in quotes here normally because that is one thing. That wind shear has not necessarily been cooperating like it normally does this year. This year, there's been higher than normal wind shear in the Atlantic, and the atmosphere is not conducive for hurricane development, which is why we were kind of in this lull and have been in this lull. Not that we're complaining about, when it comes to tropical storm and hurricane development recently. We know that we're in a spot, climatologically speaking, for storms to develop, but also where they develop is important too. When we look back from 1944 to 2020, This map is showing you the number of named storms per 100 years. And so you're looking at some of those warmer colors indicating where the most storms have formed. A lot of them out there in the western edge of that Atlantic basin. You also see that big old blob there in the northern Gulf, and that's also worth monitoring. But, the whole reason we call this the peak of Atlantic hurricane season is because we look at climatology and say, okay, this second week of September, with these conditions favorable for hurricane development, we tend to see storms here. And when these storms do start to develop and really get themselves together and find that sweet spot out there in the western Atlantic or in the Gulf, that's when problems could potentially come for the United States. Even taking this a step further, we've got the numbers. NOAA, the agency in charge of keeping records with weather phenomena, they have, going back again to the 1800s, 709 tropical storms just in the month of September. More
709?
Yeah, girl, more than any other month of the year. September puts out the most number of named storms, 427 hurricanes, and then 63 major hurricanes. By definition, major would be category 3 or stronger. I was also reading this morning, doing some research, that when it comes to those major hurricanes, category 3 or stronger, just shy of half that we've ever seen have all come in the month of September. So there was a vast, a vast hotspot here in the calendar for not only storms, but for some big and explosive storms. September typically averages 4 to 5 named storms. We haven't seen that. Our last named storm was Fernand. We have not yet seen Gabrielle,
and
which
Fernand was last month, right? It wasn't even in September.
Correct. Right. Yes. I'm blanking on the actual date of formation, because that's also important to know. It's the date it forms and not necessarily the date it makes landfall as far as the named storm goes. But right now there's nothing out there. And like I said earlier, we're not complaining about this.
Nothing developing even?
Nothing to watch. No tropical waves. And it kind of plays back into what I had mentioned about the atmosphere being pretty hostile for tropical development, which is a really good thing for us. And so we've got a couple clusters out there you can see closer to the coast of Africa. So even if we are to see a tropical wave come out over the next couple of days, it's going to be at least a week before it even gets close to us, if it does become something. So we know we're not done. We know that we still have the back end of the season, but it is nice to see the Atlantic so quiet, considering, the Eastern Pacific hasn't been so friendly to us. So you can see we've knocked off 6 names so far. 6, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, Aaron, and Fernand. The next name would be Gabrielle, followed by Berto. Now, I will also play into the fact that we've got 2 different basins that could cause some problems for us, right? Even though the Atlantic, which is the peak today, is one that tends to cause, I think, the most immediate knee-jerk reaction to people thinking when something gets into the Gulf, and rightfully so. We've had some pretty treacherous systems, but the Pacific can also cause some problems for us, and it's never something we want to turn our back on. We've got this area of disturbed weather just south of Mexico with high odds of becoming a tropical depression here within the next week. I mean, I think that this week we'd probably have something out there to watch, and potentially maybe something a little stronger to watch too, as it continues to favor those warmer waters there in the Pacific. And then we still have Tropical Storm Kiko spinning closer to Hawaii, but it's moving away from Hawaii, and it's going to weaken here within the next 24 hours. So Pacific names, we are already on the M name, which would be Mario, if that system does become further organized into that tropical storm. So Mario on the Eastern Pacific side and Gabrielle on the Atlantic side. As a reminder, we typically see more storms in the Eastern Pacific in a normal season, which is why you actually see more names on the list compared to the Atlantic. The Atlantic has 21 named storms, and this has a few more because we don't include the X or the Y. Let me go back. I can tell you right now. It's the XYZ. There we go. XYZ is not included on the Atlantic, but it is in the Pacific.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we are halfway through that list, or little less than halfway
For
through
the
that
Pacific,
list.
yeah. And like I said, it's nice that we don't have anything in the Atlantic right now worth monitoring. It's also, nice that we've got a good stretch of quiet, non-dangerous weather here at home. This is your current 7-day forecast, and honestly, it's kind of boring. We've got a ton of sunshine.
I mean, it's perfect football weather. If you
Perfect.
ask me.
Yeah, a couple spot showers possible in our eastern counties tomorrow, but otherwise, I mean, we're talking sunny and dry conditions all the way through the early part of next week. That football icon you see there, Texas taking on UTEP. I know you guys have done quite a few stories on KXAN Plus with the Horns report. This is going to be a much different game weather-wise than it was last week. Last week we had overcast skies,
A little bit of drizzle.
Yeah, temperatures were in the 80s out there. It was so nice.
Perfect.
But an 11 a.m. kick. This Saturday,
It's gonna be
DKR,
hot.
3:15, hot in the dead of the afternoon, sunshine, light winds, highs of the 90s. I mean, you want to think, if you're going to that game on Saturday, you want to think about making sure you got short sleeves, sunscreen, shorts, water.
Hydrated.
Yeah, it's going to be a
that.
much different feel than what we had last weekend.
Well, it was nice to kick off our first game with some great weather, but we're back to that Texas heat.
Back
this
to
week.
it. Better than triple digits, right? Better than triple digits, but still something that we're going to watch for. But, it's interesting, as we were even talking as a weather team, how weird it is that it's the second week of September.
Yeah.
Atlantic's quiet, 7 days quiet, also in that same breath noting we had a terrible July with the heavy flood. So it's not that we didn't pay our dues with weather. We certainly did, and more. But when it comes to this time of year, things usually start to get a little bit more active, and we're not seeing it right now, and we're grateful.
Yeah, we are, definitely. Kristen, like you mentioned, hurricane season is not over yet. So for anyone who is looking to stay updated with all of the alerts that our meteorologists have, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I will tell you, we've got all sorts of goodies on our website, KXAN.com. Not only are you going to find what we talked about today with the climatology, and today being the peak of hurricane season on KXAN.com with Kristen's classroom. You see the article written there. But there's also, if you hover over weather and traffic, that tab up there, we have a whole section dedicated to tropical. So second column, close to the bottom, you're going to see the word tropical. And I love this page. This is something that I actually look at frequently, because we list out everything there with the names, and then once that would load, it shows you the hurricane tracker if there was anything out there, which we don't. And then the tropical tracker there, if you click that second link, Christopher Adams, who's our data guru, in combination with the weather team, we actually log and keep track of every storm that forms in the season and the strength that it reached at a certain time, not only with the graph there, but also in different ways. You can see all sorts of information and data about the storms we've already seen, going back to Andre, and this was Tropical Storm Barry, which again landed in Mexico, made landfall in Mexico as a tropical storm, but unfortunately it was largely the reason we had all those floods in July. So that's why, tropical systems, we take every single one of them seriously, because they can do some pretty sneaky and horrible things to us, even as a tropical storm, and not a big bad Category 5, which heaven forbid we would ever see.
Yes, and if you are hearing chatter of any hurricanes, please visit this website, and you can for sure get that information on this page or any other blogs that our meteorologists are posting, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, good news is we're halfway done. Not so good news is we still have the back end of the hurricane season to go. And we know that the back end tends to be the one that keeps us busier than normal. But if you ever have a question, definitely reach out. Sometimes we'll get viewers saying, hey, I've got a vacation to Cabo San Lucas, or I've got a vacation, to Playa del Carmen. We try and give you a heads up as to what we're seeing. But right now would be the time to get on a plane and go to the beach, because there is nothing out there that looks that threatening.
And if you have any weather questions like that, please send them our way.
Yes.
Rich Siegel, our meteorologist, he does a Q&A, and he's always looking for viewer questions, so please send them our way.
And I think, that's something KXAN's First Warning Weather team does really well. We don't want to just tell you the weather.
No.
We want to tell you why. That's what we went to school. That's what we love. That's what we truly enjoy talking about. So fire off those questions, whether they're tropical related or not. We will do our best to answer them.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sitting with me and talking about this today, Kristen.
Of course.
It was a pleasure, and we will see you next week on Kristen's Classroom.
See you then.